The exhibition, Fashion Accounts, opened this past Thursday. It showcases a collection of installations that interrogate the intricate relationship between fashion, memory, and cultural heritage. Curated by the talented trio of Wanda Lephoto, Erica de Greef, Alison Moloney, the exhibition confronts the ways in which material cultures have been collected as well as stored and preserved, critiquing the historical context that often accompany these practices. So by showcasing contemporary interpretations of dressing and identity, the fair aims to disrupt the traditional museum experience. And this morning, we're joined by one of the co-curators, Erica de Greef, to tell us a little bit more. Erica, good morning, and thank you for joining us at this hour.
Good morning. Yes, thank you so much.
Talk to us about the inspiration behind Fashion Accounts at large. What went into that for you?
Well, Fashion Accounts, it's Fashion Accounts in Museum Africa. So it really is addressing museum practices and not only museum practices, but also collections in museums. And so Museum Africa in Johannesburg is one of many museums that has a large fashion collection that we need to overcome some of that coloniality in those collections. So maybe
perhaps we can speak about that, overcoming those conventions in archiving at large. Talk to us about what went into that.
So we've shared some of the photographs of the artists, which is Wanda Lephoto's project, the tennis series. So 10 years ago, Wanda, together with these artists, started to think, you know, where are these Black South African fashion histories? Where are they archived? They're not in the textbooks, they're not in the museums. And so how do we start to imagine them? How do we change this algorithm of how we remember history? So their work with vintage clothing and thrifted clothing was really looking at, can we create new images of the past, and particularly of Johannesburg? So in Museum Africa, we have the same challenges. There's no traces of Black South African history in the collections because, as you know, Black South Africans did not donate clothing to museums. White South African donated clothing to the museum. So the collection is stained by its colonial history. And how do we overcome that? How do we decolonize that history?
What have been some of the responses, particularly in the collective memory that clothing and dressing plays for our society at large? What has that feedback been?
Well, it's clothing is material culture is quite ambiguous. So it is a jacket that was worn by somebody, but it reminds you of somebody else. So it's in those slippages that we can start to tell new kinds of stories of other and embody new kinds of people. So Museum Africa has 3 collections that we've brought together in this exhibition, and the one is the Bernberg Fashion Collection, which is a historical collection of white-owned garments. The other is the Ethnographic Collection, which has dress and indigenous clothing cultures of about 11,000 objects. And then there's a third collection, which I think is really interesting, is the Images Collection. Because the Images Collection allude to histories of dressed people in Johannesburg, and we have witness of very new kinds of stories. So we bring these 3 into dialogue, and then to add to that, we've also brought in the work of some contemporary fashion designers.
Yes, before we get into that, I want to look at the emotions that is evoked, also just reflecting some of the timepieces in Johannesburg that come to mind. What is brought up in that? How do we also heal through all of that as well?
Absolutely. So one of the key questions that we're also asking about these collections, is it beauty or is it trauma? Because coloniality carries such a stain of oppression. So the dressed colonizers imposed very particular ways of dressing, erasing other ways of dressing. So this collection evokes those memories, and we have, the example of these images. So these, as beautiful as they may seem, they're also carrying traces of trauma. And so how do we start to shift and move away from that, where we can think about other modes or other moments? And so our campaign material is also trying to imagine and insert other other people into those algorithms of those garments, other histories, other moments of joy. So the tennis series is one of those to imagine and I guess change that algorithm.
Because representation and inclusion matters as well. I'm looking at the artists and Mimi Duma as well, contributing to the exhibition. As we wrap up, talk to us about that. Perhaps also where it's being showcased, the dates and all of that.
Absolutely. So again, thinking about designers not having access to archives, or not that the archives, there's so many gaps in the archives. So designers like Tebe Magugu, like Sindisa Kumalo and Mimi Duma, as a hair artist, they're thinking about creating archives through their garments and through their design. So we've included some of their work, which is super exciting. Design is an act of reclaiming heritage. Design is an act of reclaiming histories. Yeah. The exhibition opened on Thursday. It was really exciting for us also to be in Museum Africa, a space that has a troubled history, that is still grappling with its colonial past, and using fashion to navigate or create new pathways of imagination or new pathways of expression. So we're hoping that school kids can come. Museum Africa is free to the public. Parking is on Mary Fitzgerald Square in Newtown. It's absolutely safe to park there. It's open from now until February 28th. And yeah, we look forward to seeing everybody there.
It's going to be interesting to see how this influences contemporary reality as well as we navigate this next chapter, perhaps with more agency.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us at this hour and for sharing that prolific story, because co-creator Erica de Greef chatting about Fashion Accounts exhibition, of course, where fashion meets visual arts. It's currently showcasing at the Museum of Africa.